I think if you were to ask me what my favorite products are, the iPad Pro wouldn't make it to the list. And it's not because it's not, I use it all the time, but I think it's because it blends in so seamlessly, I kind of forget that I use it as much as I do. So now that we're in 2020 and we have iPadOS, I figured I'd go through, show you what I use my iPad Pro for, and everything that's on here. Okay, so the iPad Pro I have now is the 11-inch in space gray. I got the smaller one because it just felt so small, especially with this latest design. It was really compact and just easy to hold and use. But I love that it's such a small package that pretty much does everything you would need. So you got the keyboard, you've got the screen, and you have an Apple Pencil. Now, one of my favorite things about iPadOS is having the widgets on the home screen. It just gives you a little bit more information without having to go into an app. So I have the weather, I have Surfline, the calendar. There's not a lot that I use this for, but it's nice for at a glance. So I can see what's up on my calendar, I can see the weather. I use this every time on my iPad because it's on the home screen. I do wish this was a little more full featured. I could do more on the home screen, but it's a big step up and I enjoy it. Okay, real quick before we continue, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Now this is a game that you can play not only on mobile, but also on your desktop. And what's great about it is that one, it's free, which is always nice, and it has stellar graphics. You play it on your phone, but it doesn't look like a mobile game. So this is an RPG style game and you play as your character, which are known as champions. You can do PvP battles against other players. You can do a campaign, which is incredibly detailed and story oriented. There's also dungeons where you can fight against 10 different bosses and get different artifacts when you win to make your champions that much stronger. Some of the champions you can get are like Gallic, who is an orc, or probably my favorite, who I think just looks cool, Crusader, who is a sacred order. So if you want to play, my name is Matt D. Gonzalez in game, so come check me out. You can join my clan. Go to the video description, click on the special links, and you'll get 50,000 free silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start your journey. So I have my iPad set up in 3 basic pages. I have the first one, which is for the general stuff that I use every single day. The second page is for all the creative apps. So photography, video creation, anything like that lives here. And then the third is all for work. Now on the first page, I have a lot of the stock apps, which I do use for the most part. FaceTime, Photos, Calendar, Notes, Reminders, all those apps I use pretty regularly. And then I have Surfshark, which is the VPN that I'm currently using. I have Amazon, Nest, Reddit, Yelp. These are all pretty standard apps, but they're the apps I find myself actually going into quite a bit, so I put them here on the first page. Now Surfline, I love to check in the morning. I'm trying to get into surfing, so using this app is probably the best way I've found to just kind of see what the conditions are at my local beaches, so I don't get out there without knowing what to expect. Surfing is fun, I still suck, but this app is a must if you're into surfing. And then I have all my media consumption apps, so Netflix, Apple TV, all that kind of stuff. Apple TV is probably the one I've been using most lately. The Servant, if you haven't watched it already, definitely do so. It is one of my favorite shows on Apple TV Plus. But all the ones that I've watched so far have been pretty solid. And then Disney Plus, I mean, there really isn't any more that needs to be said there. It's Disney Plus, has pretty much everything that you could want there. And The Mandalorian, if you haven't seen it, again, check it out. Now on the dock, I have, again, more standard apps. I have Messages, Safari, which I actually use the most on the iPad. The desktop Safari in iPadOS is excellent, and it's probably one of the reasons why the iPad has become one of my favorite devices, because I can just use it as I would a desktop computer, and it does pretty much everything I need. I also have Spark, which is my current email client. I talked about that in my What's on My iPhone video, so check that out if you haven't already. And then Twitter, YouTube Studio, and Lightroom. Lightroom lives in the dock because I use it that much. It is a very powerful photo editing software that you've most likely heard of, but I think it shines on the iPad. Now on that second page, there's really only 3 apps that I routinely use here. So Photoshop for iPad is finally out, and it is a huge disappointment. It does a lot of things pretty well, but it is not at all what I was hoping it would be and what it was touted to be, which is a full version of Photoshop. It is not. It's missing a lot of features, and I can't really rely on it to do everything that I need to do in terms of Photoshop. So instead of using Photoshop, which occasionally I do, I still use Affinity Photo. This has every single feature you could pretty much want. There's definitely a learning curve, especially if you're used to Photoshop, but it is powerful, it gets the job done, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And it works extremely well on the iPad, especially with the Apple Pencil. I love it, I use it all the time. Unsplash, I've talked about it many times, but but that is where most of my wallpapers come from. If I don't take it myself, then it is most likely from Unsplash. Their app is very good, and it's an easy way to just browse and find awesome pictures that are royalty free to use for pretty much anything. So that is where my wallpapers pretty much always come from. I have other apps here that I don't really touch, but I have at some point, so I just keep them just in case. Visco, I mainly just do those kind of edits on my phone. LumaFusion is great for video editing, but I just don't really do that on the iPad. But there have been times where it's nice to have that program here, and it's really easy to use. It's powerful. Same goes for Procreate and iMovie. Those are all great apps that occasionally I have opened, but I don't use them all the time. Now on the third page for all the work, I have kind of your other general apps. 1Password for password management. Slack, Trello. Trello, if you've never heard of it, is a good way to organize tasks. So you can create these little cards and put them in different folders and kind of arrange everything that you need to do. It's what we use at work. It's what I use for the channel here. And it's just a solid way to visually see everything that you need to do. Now, another app that I think is invaluable, especially if you're getting started, is Forms. So this lets you create a contract for any work that you need to do. So if you're freelance photography, for instance, you can go in, enter your client's name, enter the price, what the scope of work is, all of that, and it'll automatically generate a contract for you, so you can send that off, get it signed, and start working. That's one of the things that when you're starting, you just don't really know how to do. Like, how am I gonna write a legal contract? This takes care of it for you, and it's just really easy to use. And then I have kind of the other apps that you might expect. So Google Docs, Google Calendar, Google Forms, Google Hangouts, all those here. I use them all pretty much on a daily basis. And it's nice that the iPad apps are good quality, so I don't really have to use anything else. Now on the last page is kind of just the miscellaneous apps that I touch occasionally but don't really need. And those of here, so like the Apple Store app, deliveries. A lot of these apps I use a good amount on my phone, but not necessarily on the iPad. But I like having them here in case, something comes up. I'm already on the iPad. Just open it up. So that is what's on my iPad Pro. There's not a lot to it. It's pretty simple, but it gets everything I need to do done, and I enjoy it in the process.